Hey everyone, this is Pirate Tom.
This is Cheesy Danish.
And welcome to Was It Worth It, the part podcast, part review show where we take a cheap indie game and instead of giving it a 1 through 5 star rating, we decide was it worth the cost.
And this show is brought to you by SharcTank Media.
SharcTank Media, it's fresh. That's not our actual...
Yeah, I think we're gonna get a cease and desist by Subway, you know.
So what game did we play this week, my friend?
We played Cook Serve Delicious. It is a food service simulation game developed by Vertigo Gaming. Tim and I picked it up on Steam for $10. Cook Serve Delicious is a game much like the popular browser or smartphone food service games that you may have heard of, like the ones where you're flipping pancakes, cooking burgers, or serving pizzas to various customers. I mentioned this in the last episode, but the reason I was really excited to play this one is because I figured for a full game on Steam, with the price of $10, there must be something about it that makes it a little more in-depth, something that sets it apart from the other games.
Yeah, and, you know, to be honest with you, I've played a lot of these food service simulation type games, and not only just the cheesy little flash games, but also the big fish games that have a higher production quality than just the cheap ones. And it seems like this game took a lot of the features from those games and kind of simplified them, but then put them all together. And what I mean by that is most of those games focus on one specific thing. And this game takes all of those different things and just kind of simplifies them and put them all together. Instead of having a game that's just you serving burgers, in this game you serve burgers and you manage the store and you buy recipes and you do this and you do that and you do catering events and whatnot. Whereas other games, you're focused on one specific task, whereas this one has several different tasks, but they're all a little simpler than in the other games.
Right. I imagine it would be a little crazy if it had every single aspect of those games with all of the complexities.
It would be extremely difficult.
Well, I still feel like this game does get pretty challenging. As a matter of fact, I think that is my favorite aspect of this game. I mean, depending on how popular your restaurant is and how you've put together your menu, you could be building a multitude of complex dishes for tons of customers who are flooding into your restaurant, especially during the afternoon and evening rush hours, which can certainly get overwhelming. But at the same time, if you've gotten really good at making the various dishes you put on your menu and managing your time correctly, you can really kick ass and feel awesome in the process. And of course, you're rewarded for it with more money earned, and if you successfully serve every order perfectly in a single day, you get a bonus. Once again, it's not always easy if you choose to play it like that, but it's really fun and fulfilling, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, and I would agree with that for the most part, but there were times when the game would just screw you over with the wrong chore at the wrong time, or you get all 5 or 6 customers in a row are all the hardest dish or the one dish that you don't know as well as the others, and there's just situations that can come up and screw you if you don't have every dish planned perfectly. And even in some cases it's like there's some dishes that, sure they make money, but they're kind of annoying, like why?
Yeah, there were some dishes where they would have a much higher price point than all of your other dishes, but they took so much extra work that it almost wasn't worth it. I do agree with you there. Sometimes I would just have those perfect moments where I would have a full rush hour where I felt like I was on fire. And there was kind of a rush. There was a good feeling from that where I was just knocking out orders left and right. And it was really enjoyable when, I guess, the stars aligned, so to speak.
No, I know where you're coming from, and I get what you're saying. There were those times where you're just like, and just knocking out, just hitting home run after home run, and it did feel pretty sweet. But at the same time, I felt like those were rare.
Another thing about the game that I really liked, and I guess this is another part of it that I feel made it a little more in-depth and kind of set it apart from the other food service games. I liked that you could check your emails in the game. You kind of had email service, quote unquote, and there was always something funny or interesting in there. Whether it be a bet to get 40 perfect consecutive orders the next day, which earns you some extra cash, or if you get a hilarious passive-aggressive email from one of the people who work in the office building that your restaurant's located in.
Yeah, I know what you mean. There were a lot of gems, but at the same time, some of them were just stupid. And it almost felt like real life, where you're just checking through spam or or whatever, you're just like, oh, I don't know why this guy's talking about his toenails. I don't care.
But I feel like you have to appreciate the reality of that,
No, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think that there was some good humor there, though. Like the person or people who were kind of writing some of those emails or making some of those jokes, some of them actually made me laugh out loud. And I think that's actually pretty impressive for kind of a little indie game where you were expecting to make pizzas, but you're reading a silly email with a horoscope that made you laugh your ass off.
Yeah, I agree. There were some emails that made me laugh out loud. I think there was a lot of flavor in this game in that respect. And yeah, it was enjoyable for me as well.
Totally. There's also a lot of control over what goes into your menu, and each menu item has its own bonuses and penalties, requiring you to be pretty smart with the recipes that you choose. In an effort to really maximize the bonuses and get more attention to your restaurant on any given day, like, you really have to build your menu pretty intelligently. For instance, if you have a lot of really healthy items that the game deems healthier than others, you can actually really maximize the buzz to your restaurant, which is the appeal, how many people you'll actually get coming in that day, which can actually be really overwhelming, like we mentioned before, but also really lucrative, which is super cool. It'll even penalize you if you use some of the same menu items for more than 2 days in a row, which actually forces you to switch your menu around whether you want to or not, which, that might seem like a pain, but it actually freshens up the gameplay.
Yeah, that's true. My experiences were that I did a lot of experimenting with that kind of stuff, and what I found is that it honestly didn't make a huge difference. The most money I made was when I used coffee, soda, and salads, because I could just blast through salads. I knew every button for every combination of salads.
It's not like you have to wait for a salad to cook.
Exactly, and a fully upgraded salad is a decent profit, and people tip on them. So what happens when you have coffee, soda, and salad is, no matter what, every rush hour you're only getting salads. Every single customer is getting salads, which means a ton of profit back to back to back, and I'm getting perfect days every day, because how can you mess up soda, coffee, or salad? You know what I mean? It's just like, it may have been 90% efficient on what I could have earned if I had wine and steak on my menu, but it's like, it's so much easier.
Sure.
And I almost think that,
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's definitely, it's efficiency versus variety. I get the appeal of wanting to just keep it efficient. You found something that works, stick with it. In my case, I try and force myself to switch things up every once in a while, otherwise I'll get sick of the game. To stick with some of the positive aspects of the game, something I did want to mention is the music, composed by Jonathan Gear, is great. I think it really fits the theme of the game, and while you do end up hearing the same tracks over and over, they're fun and they're really well composed. Something I liked was when you have a lunch or dinner rush and you're slammed with orders, the music gets really fast-paced and intense, and it's so jazzy. It's just really fun to listen to, and that was a good touch. It's also worth noting that the bed music that you're hearing right now is from the game's original soundtrack, which can be purchased on the website bandcamp.com for $3.
Yeah, I think that in a vacuum, if you listen to each track individually, it's pretty good. I actually had an issue with the way it changed throughout the day. Like, it had a large variety of styles, but a very eclectic variety of styles.
Sure.
And sometimes it would switch from one to another, and it didn't make sense to me why, and it was distracting almost. Because, like, either the tempo would change, or, I did like the rush hour thing, like you said, how it gets really high tempo, really, really, it actually helped. It was almost like, okay, gotta go fast or whatever. But there were parts of the day where it was almost distracting. Like I tried to figure out what songs were used at one point, but I couldn't come up with a pattern exactly.
Yeah, I think it was just random. Honestly, I think there's like 20 tracks or so, and maybe not 20, maybe 12 or so.
Sure.
And it just kind of it plays them randomly.
Yeah, and that to me was a little distracting.
Really?
But I did enjoy them all individually,
Sure.
like I said, and I think it was well done. But I felt like I didn't like the randomness of the music.
Yeah, I could see that. That's fair. I mean, outside of the game, especially, the music is admirable because, like you mentioned, there are so many different styles, and a lot of them kind of old school kind of styles, classic styles, with really like kind of classic sounding like upright bass. You can really hear it. They're really fast paced and a lot of good string sections and that sort of thing. And the composer really just knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So, we've mentioned a few things that we liked or we're kind of in the middle on with this game. To move on to maybe least favorite aspects of the game, for me at least, here's the big thing. The game is extremely repetitive. In order to progress in the game, you need to meet a certain number of requirements on a checklist. Once they're met, your star rating goes up, and you get a new checklist. And with a star rating upgrade, you gain access to a few new things, like some special recipes. Eventually, you get to do an Iron Chef-style tournament. They don't really add anything new to the gameplay that isn't just churning out orders for customers.
I mean, this game is the definition of grinding. Like, and I think it could have been done a lot better if they didn't have the minimum day requirement for a star move up. Because it's like, okay, here's a checklist of 8 things, and some of these things actually matter. Like, do this number of catering events, have this number of things on your menu, purchase this many, have served this many perfect days, or something like that. That's actually meaningful. But when it's just minimum 20 days to move up,
right?
When 12 of the 20 you've checked off everything on the list already, and you're just doing it to get those days, it is the definition of grinding. They're just forcing you to, for no reason, go through level after level after level just to take that little bit leap up. I mean, it was like, and it's not even like it's a huge leap. It's like, okay, I hit 1 star, I can now do this, and I get 8 new recipes that I can buy. But at the same time, it's like, so what? Like.
Yeah, and I know what you're thinking. The complaint that the game makes you serve food to customers too much when the point of the game is to serve food to customers. I know you're thinking that complaint sounds a little unfair because, what else could they have put into a food service game that isn't serving food? Well, I think it wouldn't have been as noticeable how chore-like and repetitive the game is if, like Tim just said, the individual days of business weren't so long and it didn't require you to power through 20 of them just to get a star upgrade. For instance, according to Steam, I've played this game for over 20 hours, and I'm just a 3-star restaurant out of 5. And there are still features in the game that are locked that I can technically still work towards, but that is a lot of hours to play a game that just involves pressing hotkeys over and over and over and literally nothing else.
Yeah, and I think that there's so much stuff that could have been done differently that would have made the game maybe a little more accessible. Like, I feel like in the beginning, the recipes are way too expensive and you're not earning nearly enough money. So especially in the beginning, like, they give you a starter amount of money and you don't know what you're doing, so you grab 4 or 5 recipes and you don't realize that they don't have synergy and they suck, and your first days are going to suck and you're not going to make much money. And then it's like, okay, after your first 5 days you can buy 1 new menu item, but again, you still haven't quite figured it out, so you're going to buy another thing that may or may not jive with your menu, and then it's going to suck, and then you're going to be making marginally more money, and then maybe you'll get a bet, maybe you won't. I mean, there was randomness in, like Dane was talking about. You get emails with random bets, or there's this random bet service that they'll give you a certain number of silver tickets, and then you can use those tickets to take certain bets. But the bets are like, okay, you can earn a lot of money if you have these specific menu items, and it's like, okay, I went 12 days in a row and I couldn't do a single one of the bets, and I looked at the potential earnings I could have had, and it was like, God, I wish I had that much money, but I just can't,
Right.
And it's not my fault. It's completely random. There's no way for me to know what.
Yeah, there's no way to prepare your menu specifically for the bets that you're going to get when the bets themselves are randomized. And because the money comes in so slowly for the first several hours of the game, you don't have enough money to buy all of the food menu items in order to prepare for those bets. So it's just kind of luck of the draw. I totally get where you're coming from. I think based on our comparisons of our progress of the game, I am further than you are in the game. I can tell you when you're later in the game, money ends up not being a problem. I'm having regular $1,800 days.
Yeah, I'm getting to the point where my days are starting to get a lot more profitable versus when I first started out. I'm 2 or 3 days short of 2-star, and that's with 8 hours of play or something. So it takes you close to 10 hours just to get to 2 stars, which is...
Yep, and that's why I'm close to 4 stars at 20 hours. 20 hours of just pressing those hotkeys.
And what will 4-star give you? What makes... Is there anything at all that makes you want to get to 4 stars?
I just a burning curiosity to see what the last few things a game that I've already dumped so much time into will offer to me, which I'm assuming at this point is probably not very much, but...
I feel like they should in a game like this especially, they should have a carrot on a stick in front of you guiding you, saying, look at this awesome thing that you get, you just need to power through 5 more days. It's like, I never felt like that. I never felt, at first maybe the Iron Cook competition or maybe catering events, but then it was just like every single reward I felt like I was getting was underwhelming.
Sure. That's fair. To move on from the gameplay itself, I have a love-hate relationship with the graphics in this game. I feel like the restaurant designs themselves have been pretty boring, especially since you have to look at them for days and days and days and days of gameplay. And the people that come in and wait around for their food are kind of crudely drawn.
It's like 5 frumpy-looking people
I know.
that you get every single day.
Unfortunately, there's just no variety between them. I'm pretty sure the same 10 people come into your restaurant over and over in the same day. Now that said, I do really like the way the food looks in this game.
I agree.
And that's a good thing, because that's all you really see while you're playing. I mean, you kind of see the people waiting around, but it's sort of zoomed out. But when you're preparing a cheeseburger, there's a giant-ass cheeseburger on the center of your screen, so it might as well look detailed. I want to add that the art in this game is by Sarah Gross of 2bitart.com. That's TWO spelled out. And even though I wasn't impressed by the way the customers looked in the game, I did check out her other stuff, and it's all really good. So that's worth noting.
Yeah, and I pretty much had the same opinion. The food looked great, the restaurant was boring, the people were ugly, and no variation. I mean, it was just really, I guess, they didn't need it, but come on, it doesn't take that much to draw 20 different character models, you know what I mean?
Right.
They could have easily thrown it in.
And a large number of the people were just slight variations of other people.
Yeah, exactly. Just a slightly less or slightly more dumpier looking person, because they were all dumpy looking.
Yep. So, I guess we might as well summarize our experiences with the game at this point. For me, I wasn't expecting much going in. I wanted a food service game that brought a little more to the table than the free or under $5 food service games out there. And I think it's fair to say that that is what I got. Despite the fact that if you actually want to get far in the game, it requires far too many hours of repetitive gameplay for any sane person to dump into it. I did enjoy customizing my menu, and I loved the rush I'd get while whipping up dozens of consecutive perfect orders with some of the hardest recipes in the game. There was also some excellent humor scattered throughout the game, like with the emails I mentioned earlier, and I actually did laugh out loud a few times, so that's definitely a plus. I'd say for me, at $10, it was worth it, especially if there's ever an update that speeds up the pacing of the game.
My experiences with the game was with having a lot of experience with restaurant simulation games or food service simulation games. It was disappointing for me. It was a grind with not enough flavor, not enough variation. All the food service simulation games are by design repetitive, but they were, I felt like you progress faster and you got new things faster. You'd get a new restaurant faster and the new restaurant was completely different, or you'd get new recipes faster and it was like, okay, for example, take the game Bistro Boulevard. You start with one restaurant, and I can't remember if it's Mexican or American food or whatever, but there's 16 recipes you can get at that restaurant, and probably after 4 hours of gameplay, you're at a completely new restaurant, and this time it's Japanese, and you get 20 different Japanese recipes you can get in, and there's all these different equipment, and the equipment's more upgradable and customizable. Or you hire staff, you hire cooks and waiters, and they're upgradable, and they can specialize in different areas of cooking so that you get different quality meals depending on and there's so much more to those games in their own areas, and I felt like that's what I was looking for, and that's not what I got. Like you said, you were forcing yourself to change up the menu, which made it less repetitive, but I didn't find enjoyment in changing up the menu, really. I just did because I had to, or I did because I got bored of the previous menu, and then the next menu I didn't know as well, so I'd mess up, and then I'd have to restart the day, and because I wanted perfect. That being said, there were some enjoyable aspects. Completing a perfect rush hour was often a good feel, and after the first upgrade from 0 to 1 star, I was on the fence. I couldn't decide if it was worth it or not, but going from 1 to 2 stars, I firmly implanted in my head that I don't think it's worth it at all. I think it's way too much of a grind, and not enough stuff interesting. Like, the emails are fine, and the game has some flavor, and the music's interesting, but it just wasn't enough there for me. I mean, you could say, okay, it's only $10 and there's a lot of stuff that you get, but quality goes above quantity for me any day.
Sure.
So that's just
Gotcha.
yeah, not worth it for me.
Sounds like we feel a little differently on it, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's what this is all about. Different perspectives.
Anyway, so that's that on Cook Serve Delicious. We did pick a game for next week. We're going to play Pixel Junk Shooter. So I guess we'll see how that is. It looks pretty interesting. Kind of has a...
It's like a flying action shooter-up game. Should be fun.
Yeah, it seems like it had some puzzle aspects to it, and I like the graphic style. It kind of reminded me of some of the older DOS-based, platformers.
Yeah, I think the art style looked pretty cool, and I'm really excited to play it.
All right, well, see you guys next week.
Yeah, thanks for listening.